Well, hello, welcome again to a reading of the letter to the Ephesians, and I'm up to chapter 2, verse 11. Dio mnemonuete hotipote humas ta ethne ensa ki hoi legominoi acrobustia hypotes legomenes peritomes ensa ki kairapoietu. I'll just pause there because it's another long sentence here. Dia for dia plus hot. Wherefore, on account of which thing. So wherefore, it's an imperative here. Call to mind, remember. So call to mind that once, and he's used this potty earlier in this chapter. He's constantly reminding the readers that they were once in one state and are now in another. That once humas, you understand, were the Gentiles en sarki, in the flesh. So he means here that you were once, in terms of your race in the flesh, you were ethne, you were the Gentiles. Hoi legominoi, those being called, passive participle. Now this is rather tricky, this bit, to get into English. The acrobustia is an abstract noun meaning the uncircumcised. So it's the this actually refers to the foreskin, and this is the abstract noun formed from that. And so if you have a foreskin, then you're uncircumcised. So we have here abstract for concrete. So you were said to be, in inverted commas, the uncircumcision. And then you were said, and we'll get this is passive, so we get hupa, by that which is called the peritomes, the circumcision. So again, it's abstract. Peritome is those who've had the foreskin cut around and hence removed. So the peritome is just another abstract noun for the circumcision, but it's again abstract for concrete. So we might actually say something like, remember therefore that once you were Gentiles in the flesh, those being called belonging to the uncircumcised, by those being called those who are circumcised, literally by the circumcision. In the circumcision, we get an adjective. It's a two-termination adjective because it's made of two parts, the kairo, the hand, and poio, to make. And it's got an u ending, even though it's agreeing back with this because it's two-termination. So the circumcision which was made by hands in the flesh. So if I translate, that's the literal translation of it, you could say, as I said, something like, those who are called, so you who were called the uncircumcised by those who were called the circumcised, which, or by the circumcision which is made by hand, by hands, we'd say in English, but it's not really plural, but made by hands en saki, in the flesh. Hoti ate, so here we're going to get this juxtaposition between the Jews and the Gentiles, the circumcised, the uncircumcised, and so on. Hoti ate, this is second person plural from the verb to be, because you were in this age. And he uses this kairos, in this time or season, perhaps rather than age, perhaps season. Choris Christou, without a Messiah. Ap alot trio menoi, this is a perfect passive participle. It means to be separated from or alienated from. It's from, the verb is ap olot trioamai, if you're looking it up, to be separated from. Ap alot trioamai. meaning to be separated or alienated from. So separated or alienated from the politia, well, this is a good classical word. It means society, citizenship, state, people. Perhaps state of Israel might be right here. So being alienated from the state of Israel, from the polity of Israel, from the citizenship of Israel, and understand being xenoi, strangers, of covenants of the promise. Xenoi, well, it means a foreigner or a stranger. You could say being estranged from the covenants of the promise. Elpida mea contes kai atheoi ento cosmo. Not having an elpida, a hope, and understand being atheoi, being godless in the cosmos, in the world. Well, this is rather odd because most people at this particular time were anything but atheoi. They believed in lots of gods, but he says here, godless, without gods in the world. Nunide, very strong form of nun, with the little deictic I. It's a very, if this were being read out by someone, they would have gesticulated at this point. The little iota is a deictic ending. You use it to point at things. So, but now, it's very emphatic, in Christ Jesus, humas, you, hoi potiontes makran egenethete engus ento haimati to Christu. So, but now we, in Christ Jesus, again notice the order, so we are in Christ Jesus, we who once being makran. Now when you see a feminine adjective going with nothing, then you generally supply hodon. So being a long way away, a long path, a long way away. So you have become, this is a passive here, second person plural passive from ginomai. So you have become near in the blood of the Messiah. So just to do that again, but now in Christ Jesus, you, the ones once being makran, far away, you have become, or you have been made to be, engus, near. Now it could be in, it could be by, which is a common usage of in the New Testament, so it could be by the blood of the Messiah. I'll just straighten this up here. So, autos ga esti he irene hemon, hot poiesis ta amphotera, hen kai ta mesotoikon to phragmulusas. And I might just translate that bit. It's quite a long sentence again. For he himself is our peace. Hot poiesas, the one having literally made to amphotera, the two things, understand, having made the two things one, and lusas. Now this is from luo, it's an aorist participle, of course, but it can mean to pull down or destroy, to pull down. You get kataluo, to pull down, as normal, more stronger word, but you can get luo used in that same sense. The mesotoikon, it's literally the wall in the middle, hence the dividing wall, to phragmu, of the partition. Literally, this is a fence. So the dividing wall of the fence, literally, I'm going to say of the partition. This first word here is very rare. It's found only once elsewhere, I believe, and that's in one of the speeches of Eratosthenes. It means the dividing wall, the wall which is in the middle. Toikos is another form for takos. You might be more familiar with takos, but you get toikos commonly in Ionic dialect in Homer. And this is from so phragmos is a fence, literally. Here I'm going to say partition, that which separates things off. So just to do this again, the one having made both things into one, and having pulled down the dividing wall of the partition. Now, the editor here has put commas. I put a comma here, and again, you need to look at the commentaries on all this. The word order is very odd here and what goes with what. I'm taking lusas with this phrase here, and then taking ekthron as being referring back to the whole of what he's talking about here. The context of this is it's Jews versus Gentiles. It's the enmity, the hatred, the dislike between Jews and Gentiles. And so he says that Jesus is the one having united, having made both into one, that is the Jews and Gentiles, and having pulled down the dividing wall of the partition, having pulled it down, I would say here, by his, or in his flesh, possibly by his flesh. And the tain ekthron is what he's pulled down. He's pulled down two things. He's done this dividing wall, which is, again, it's symbolic, and the dividing wall was symbolized the ekthron, the enmity. So again, it's very hard to put into English, and you need to look at the commentary. So I'm going to translate this as the one having made both into one, having pulled down the enmity, that is the dividing wall of the partition, in his flesh, or by his flesh. Ton nomon ton entolon en dogmasin katagesas. Again, the editor's put a comma there and a comma here, so I meant to take this bit together. This is from kat argio. It's argio for ergio. Having nullified, having made ineffectual the law of the commandments en dogma sin. This is dative plural from dogma. Perhaps with its decrees, perhaps expressed in its decrees. So having nullified, having made ineffectual the law of the commandments with its dogmas, with its decrees. Hina tus duo ktise en auto eis hina kainon anthropon poion erene, kai apokatalaxe tus amphoterus en heni somati to theodia to staru apoktenas ten ekthron en auto. So in order that, this is from Katisdo, he might create. The word means to found. It's like founding a city or founding a colony, but it has that sense of create. Katisis is often used for creation in the Septuagint. So in order that he might create the two, or make the two, into one new person, anthropon, one new man literally, or one new being, in auto, in himself. Now this we'd normally expect reflexive, but you often don't get that, so I think the en auto is in himself. Poion, by making erene, making peace. Kai apo katalaxe, and again it's subjunctive after that hina earlier up here, and that he might reconcile from apokatalasso. This particular compound verb, it's a double compound, it's only here and in Colossians 1:20. So he might reconcile the both groups, that is, of course, the Jews and Gentiles, in heni somati, this is from Haismia hen, dative, in one body, to theo, for God, or to God, dia to staru, through the cross, having killed, literally, the enmity that was between the two groups, understood, en auto, in it. I think that must be referring back to the cross. Others take it as again in himself, but there is a possible antecedent of staros here grammatically. So having reconciled both sides in one body to God through the cross, having killed the enmity by it, that is by the cross. Kai elthon eu angelisato erenein humin tois makran kai erene tois engus. And that picks up the earlier verse that we saw there. And having come, he has proclaimed the good news of peace, picking up the erene back up here, to us, to us the ones, agreeing with humin, makran, far away, kai, and also peace to those near. So this presumably refers to the Gentiles and this to the Jews. Hoti diautu ekomen ten pros agogain hoiam photeroi en heni pneumati proston patera, ara unuceti estixenoi kai paroikoi ala esti sum politai turn hagion kai oikeo to theou. I might just pause there. Because through him, ekomen, we have the pros agogain, we, both groups, hoiam photeroi, so both of our groups, we have the pros agogain as the access. It's from pros and ago, the access in one spirit to the Father. So we have access to the Father through one spirit. Ara un, now this is a nice combination of particles here. Therefore then, the ara has that sense of fittingly, accordingly. So accordingly, therefore, you are no longer xenoi, no longer strangers, and paroikoi. This is a word meaning sojourners, very common in the Septuagint. It's those who live beside us, have their houses beside us, but they're not part of our community, they're just sojourners, they're just visitors, passing through almost. So therefore then, no longer you are strangers and sojourners, but you are sum politai, fellow citizens of the saints, perhaps among us or with the saints. So it's genitive after the sum. So fellow citizens with the saints, and oikie, these are members of the oikos, the household members of God. So members of the household of God. Epoikodomethem tes, from epoikodomeo, having been built in, and we get a repetition of epi, in the foundation, the themelion, of the apostles and the prophets. And then we get a genitive absolute. We haven't had too many of those, so it's ontos akrogoniaiou autu Christu Jesu. Notice the order again. Jesus Christ himself being the akrogoniaiou. This is literally it's a corner. It's an adjective, but you've got to supply stone here, the cornerstone. In fact, it's the topmost cornerstone. It's like the capstone. The gonia is a corner. This, in fact, becomes, or root from this becomes the word for angle in Greek mathematics, and akros is the top part, so it's the top corner. So it's almost like the top cornerstone, the capstone. En ho pasa oikodome, sun homologumene auxe es na on hagion en kurio, en ho kai humes sun oikodomes the es katoiketerion to theou en pneumati, in whom, literally every building, this is not the usual, it's the meaning's pretty clear, but it's more like oikodomio is to build, but this is apparently not the most common word here. Every building, it's a late word. This is from sun harmologio, to fit together. This actually is a very rare verb, and it doesn't occur in the Septuagint. In classical Greek, the word with the same meaning would be sum harmosdo, to fit together. But here it's sun harmologio. Log in the sense of select, not the log of speak here. The root here is from the select root. So it means fitted, this is a perfect, present participle here. So being fitted together, so in which every building being fitted together, auxe, this is equivalent to auxino, to grow. It's often used in place of auxino in classical Greek as well. So grows, this is present here, not a future. Eis naon, into a holy temple in the Lord, in whom also we, another one of these sun, is very fond of these sun verbs. This is from sun oikodomio, passive. We have been built together, eis kat oikterion, another very rare word in the New Testament, but it is quite frequent in the Septuagint. It simply means a dwelling. So into a dwelling of God in the Spirit. So just to quickly do that bit again. So having been built into the foundation of the apostles, or built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Christ himself being the capstone, or the chief cornerstone, the high cornerstone, in whom all building being fitted together grows into, so we might say the whole building being fitted together grows into the holy temple in the Lord, in whom also you are being built together for a dwelling of God in pneumati, in the Spirit. So probably eis is for, or as here, as a building, as a dwelling of God in the Spirit. And just got that in there. And that is the end of chapter 2.